Hey everyone, welcome once again to another episode of Disability Landscape. I'm your host, Charlie Brose. With me today as our guest, but you've probably seen him as our host as well, Mr. Paul Pranghofer. Paul, we're going to talk today about a lot of your travels. And you've been doing this for a number of years. First of all, tell our guests, our audience, what your travels have been about.
Yes, okay. Yes, I've been to Slovakia in Eastern Europe 5 times now, and what we've done in Slovakia has been a baseball camp run by a pastor from my church named Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson used to be the closer for the Minnesota Twins back in the 1970s and hurt his shoulder and his elbow and had to quit pitching and went into ministry. So Tom has had connections into Slovakia, and the first time we went over there, we did a baseball camp, and the baseball camp was through a school that we had a connection with. So the first couple trips to Slovakia were going through this school. Another one of the trips, the third trip, was a nature camp up in the mountains, which was a lot of fun. And then the final camp was, again, a baseball camp. After having been there 4 times, I started going to Haiti, I think it was around the year 2000, maybe a little past that, through another pastor at our church by the name of Steve Hansen. Steve was our missions pastor, and I had wanted to go to Haiti for years and years. But the only connection we had in Haiti at that time was a little village called Tricote, way up in the mountains. It would take about an hour and about 5 or 6 hours to go from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, their capital, over to get up to this little town up in the mountains. And sometimes the trucks broke down and they had to walk. Sometimes the river was too high to drive the trucks through, so they had to walk again. And Steve always told me that he was really afraid that I would roll off the side of the mountain in my wheelchair. Then our church, Church of the Open Door up in Maple Grove, helped build a special needs home in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And the name of the home was the Mafi Pashef House. And Steve approached me and said, I now have a place. You can go in Haiti and be successful. So my first trip was to the Mafi Pashef House, probably, a year or 2 years and a half after it opened.
Okay.
So I've been there 10 times. And then again at my church, we have 2 people that are members of our church that are from Liberia. And they were part of a community in Liberia of about 70 to 75 people that all had disabilities. And they all took care of themselves. So I got to go to Liberia twice. And then most recently I went back to Slovakia.
Now, when did you start this? And what was your impetus to do this? Who inspired you, and that type of thing?
I would say Tom Johnson,
Okay.
especially, had a lot of influence on me wanting to go places and doing things. And I love people. I connect with people well, and I had enough knowledge of baseball to almost be dangerous there. Haiti, there, I just wanted to go meet the people that lived there. There were about 25 residents of the Mafi Pashef House when I first went there. And I'll never forget my first trip there because we got off the plane. The plane was an interesting exit for me because the airport did not have jetways.
Okay.
So they rolled this long stairway right up to the plane, and you had to go down the steps to get off the plane. At that time, I was walking pretty well, and I could do steps. And I started down these steps, and what I was told is that entire airport stopped and watched while I was walking down those steps.
Now, for our audience that may not know, explain your disability so they can kind of get this in their mind's eye.
Okay, so I have congenital birth defects. I am missing both of my arms completely at the shoulders. On my left side, which I'll just kind of do that, I do have two small fingers that are functional that I can do things with. And on my right side, I have one small finger that is not functional. I'm also missing part of my right leg. I'm missing everything that you would normally have between your hip and your knee. So I have from the knee down, normal foot on the right side. And it's interesting. I got to see a 3D x-ray of my hip on that side. It's really a funky looking hip and knee joint, and it's not connected to anything. So we found out through that MRI that the only thing holding my leg on is muscles and tendons on that side.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
And so what was the first year you started doing this?
It was before 2000. I think the first time I went was around 1996. That's the first time I went to Slovakia.
Okay.
And that just came about because Tom was looking to put a team together to go to Slovakia and do baseball with these kids from the school. And I signed up. I was able to raise the funds I needed to raise. We always have to raise our own support when we go on these trips. And got to go with the team. It was interesting because when we got to Slovakia, they had only been out of communism for about 5 years.
Wow.
So they had only been a country for about 5 years.
Okay.
They were part of the Czech Republic. And now, or I should say, I guess it was called Czechoslovakia. Now it's the Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Right.
I remember riding in cars. We had to fly into Vienna in Austria and then go by car about an hour and a half to Bratislava, their capital. And as we drove in, all you could see were these big gray high-rises all over the place.
Okay.
And they all looked the same. They all looked like you wouldn't want to live in them.
So, there had to have been challenges then in getting around in a country that basically doesn't cater to people with disabilities.
At that time, that was very, very true. A lot of their sidewalks and streets were cobblestone, and doing a wheelchair on cobblestone is absolutely no fun.
Oh, I understand that.
The place we stayed at was the best hotel that they had in Bratislava at that time, and that hotel was, if you were a communist leader coming into Bratislava, that's where you stayed. Well, I can tell you that from that experience, it was one of the worst hotels I've ever stayed in. The only thing I can say, given it a plus, is the food was fantastic. There was one elevator, and my wheelchair barely fit into that elevator.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So you'd be, what, -1 star?
Yes, yes, I think so, Charlie. But one of the things that happened that was really exciting for me on that first trip is I got to go see their school for disabled kids.
Oh, okay.
And it was a residential school. And I got there, and what I was expecting to find was something that was dark and dreary and not very well kept up. And what I saw was a real modern building that had a swimming pool. It had a gym in it. The rooms were fantastic.
Okay.
And I don't know how many kids lived there at that time, but when I got there, the first thing they told me, well, we've gathered all the kids in the day room. We want you to talk to them. Well, that kind of put me on the spot, but we managed to do it. What was real interesting was all the corporate sponsors that there were up on the wall that helped build that facility.
Oh, that's cool.
McDonald's was the one that really stuck out to me that I was familiar with.
So every lunch was a Big Mac.
Yes, yes, yes.
And when you met these kids for the first time, the ones you worked with at the baseball camp, how did they accept you and your disability?
They seemed to accept me really, really well, but You know, I try to be outgoing, and I try to, what I've learned in my life is that I got to make that first connection because they're not necessarily going to make the connection.
Right.
So I try the best to make connections with the kids. It's a little tough when you're talking to kids and you know no Slovak and they don't know any English. But you know, you get by. You figure out how to do it through interpreters and
Sure.
And you know, there are certain things and foot gestures and hand gestures you can do that are pretty universal.
Okay. And so during your time there, you said you went like 4 consecutive years.
Yes, that is correct.
And did you see growth within those years?
Not a lot of growth, no.
Okay.
Things didn't really change that much in Bratislava. The only thing that changed is the hotel that we stayed in. The last 2 years that we went, we stayed in a Jewish hotel,
Okay.
which I found really interesting. They had a wheelchair accessible room on the 3rd floor up 3 flights of steps, no elevator.
Oh, that's really clever.
Yep, but somehow we figured out how to get me up there because it was the only air-conditioned room in the whole hotel. I will say the food was interesting because I never had been in a situation where they followed all the Jewish traditions with food.
Okay. And so with the barriers, the stairways, all that, you members from your travel group were always very helpful and that kind of thing.
Yep. Those first 4 trips, I always brought somebody with me. So I would raise enough money to pay for my trip and then pay for another person to come with to kind of be my helper.
Okay. And that helped out,
Yes.
made it smoother for you.
Yes.
Now, I want to kind of throw this out here. You're a man of age.
Yes, yes,
You'll be 70 this year.
that is correct.
So you've been doing this for about 25, 26 years.
That is correct.
How is it, aging and change made these things more challenging? What have you seen in yourself that changes?
Well, some of the changes I've seen in me, unfortunately, a number of years ago, I have one good knee, and I suffered a pretty critical injury to that knee, which took away some of my function. My left leg used to be strong enough that I could boost myself up on my long leg, put my short leg on a chair or something and balance to do things.
Sure.
Can't do that anymore.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No, and I'm not able to walk like I could 25 years ago. I can walk a little bit around our house, but I use a wheelchair almost all the time now to get
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay.
And not being able to do steps and being in the wheelchair all the time has presented its own set of challenges just because other countries don't have the accessibility stuff that we have here in the U.S.
Right. I mean, we're very privileged to have that.
Yes.
So it makes things easier here. On your other travels, you've been to Haiti 10 times, you said?
That is correct.
And how are the situations there? I mean, they've had the earthquakes, they've had other issues, hurricanes. Is it made it difficult for you to get there?
Today, I would not go back there because it is so dangerous right now. The street gangs are actually running the country. The government is not. And we've been told that if you're white and you go out on your own on the streets of Port-au-Prince, you're probably going to get kidnapped by somebody in a gang and held for ransom.
Okay, that's their motivation there.
Yes. And even on my 10 trips, we were always told never to go outside the compound of the Mafia Bishop house by yourself. If you went out, you were always told to go in groups of 3 or 4 if you wanted to walk around a little bit, and always take one of the Haitian people with you.
Okay. So you had the hotel with 3 stairs in Slovakia. What were accommodations for you in Haiti when you went?
They weren't too bad. they tried to use some of the American standards when they built the house there. So one of the advantages they had, as people know, they had a very bad earthquake a number of years ago. I was supposed to have been on the trip that was there when the earthquake hit, but I had to drop out at the last minute, and I don't even remember why I had to drop out. But what I was told is that the building in front of the house went down. Some of the buildings around it suffered severe damage. There were high voltage electric lines that run right over the top of the house, and they said those were swaying back and forth.
Ooh, okay.
And the house itself, the biggest damage they suffered was all the pictures fell off the walls.
Oh.
And they found about 3 or 4 cracks in the outside wall. There's a wall that goes all the way around the house.
Okay.
And because they had built it to American standards,
It withstood.
it withstood the earthquake, yes.
Oh, that's good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's fortunate for them.
Yes.
Now, is that a residential house then for, say, orphans, or what is it?
They have folks there, they all have disabilities.
Okay.
Okay, some kind of disability. Some of them are orphans.
Okay.
Some of them are, their families have put them there because they couldn't take care of them at home like they should have been able to.
Okay.
So every year that we went there, we used to have a big party where all the families were invited to come for a day and share a meal and get to meet everybody. And so it was fun being able to meet some of these kids' families. Of course, there was always a few that didn't have any family, and that was always hard on those kids when they'd see all these other families coming to see their child, but no one was coming for them.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So was there a way that your group could help compensate for that, or?
Well, we tried to, as a group, we would try to sit with them and visit with them and just be present to them.
Okay. And you know, show your compassion or
Yes,
whatever
and
in that manner.
understanding. So, something I'd like to share with you, Charlie,
Yes,
that
please.
was really cool. When we'd go to Haiti, one of the things we would do is there was a Mother Teresa's Children's Hospital.
Okay.
And we would go 4 or 5 mornings during our stay there and go volunteer there. And it was always interesting because the first time I went, there were only 2 rooms in the hospital that I could get into because they had steps all over the place. And on that first trip, I noticed this mother sitting with a baby, and the baby did not look very good. I didn't think the baby would survive the night. And what I did is I just sat with her for 2.5 hours. We didn't say a word, I just sat by her. The second time we went back, I was really surprised that the little one was still there and Mom was still there. And so again, I just sat with them for 2.5 hours, just with her.
Okay.
And I did that 3 more times. The last time we went, the little baby had made just a great improvement, great improvement. And I looked at the mom, and all I did was I nodded like this and said, "Better." And she grabbed me and gave me the biggest hug that I've ever had in my life. And all I did was sit with her. We didn't say a word, but I just was present to her.
And a lot of times that's more important than anything else. Just
Oh, definitely.
being present to someone.
Yes.
The third country you had visited was Liberia.
Yes.
Again, how are the accommodations and that kind of thing in that part of the world?
Well, I didn't get to travel too much in the city there, so I can't say about their capital city there. But the property where it's called Mission of Hope is located. It's up on top of a plateau. Oh, I would say 30 minutes from Monrovia, which is their capital.
Okay.
And it's an interesting place to be, because what I heard, what I was told, when they found out that I was coming for the first time, they actually built some concrete ramps into some of their buildings so I could get into their buildings.
Oh, that's very cool.
How the residents in wheelchairs were getting around, I have no idea. But one of the things I learned very, very quickly on that trip is there were dirt paths all over the place.
Okay.
And if I had an American pushing me, we found every rock, hole, whatever you think you could shake yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
If you had one of their people pushing you, it was like, wow, they know where all the rocks and holes are, and they would avoid them.
So it helped to have a native individual,
Yes.
behind
yes,
the wheel,
yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah. And what's nice about Liberia is their primary language is English.
Okay.
So it's very easy to communicate with the people.
Yeah, because I imagine language barrier between, Haiti is a French language.
Yeah, no,
isn't it?
they do a language called French Creole.
Okay.
So it's a combination of French and Creole.
Okay. So you could also survive in New Orleans.
Yes, definitely, definitely, Charlie, definitely.
So in the Slovakia
Slovakia is Slovak. Is
Okay.
what they speak. Although many of the kids and young people now all know English.
Okay.
So it's easy to communicate with them. Some of the older people, it's much harder to communicate with because they don't know English very well.
Okay. Now, you've done the sport, the baseball in Slovakia, and the care home and whatnot at Haiti. What activities filled your days there?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about Haiti first.
Okay.
What we would do as a group is we would bring all kinds of different activities with us. It was always a group of about 8 to 10 of us that would go.
Mm-hmm.
And we had many planning meetings and sat around and thought, well, okay, what are some of the activities that we could do with these folks? Well, one of the things we did one time, we thought, maybe these kids would love kazoos. Mm-hmm. So we brought all these kazoos with. Well, there was a young man by the name of Stephen that lived at the Mafia Chef house. He had Down syndrome.
Okay.
And we gave him a kazoo, and for the first 2 hours, he was just happy and whatever. Mm-hmm. For the next 3 days, he walked around the entire compound going, "Eeroop, eeroop," on the kazoo, and just about drove us nuts. Another time we went down to Haiti, we brought a swimming pool with. Okay. That we could assemble, and sure. We thought the kids would just have a great time with that, mm-hmm. and they did. And I have a very good friend, Paul Pranghofer, who I've traveled with quite a few times to Haiti and mm-hmm. once to Liberia. And Paul's always gone, and he's kind of been my go-to person to help me out. Mm-hmm. But we're sitting at the pool. Here's Paul, no arms, one right short leg, sitting in his wheelchair, and I'm sitting at the side of the pool being the lifeguard. And again, the same little guy, Steven, he thought it was so much fun to go dunk the other kids.
Oh, no.
Well, I watched, and we tried to correct him and get him not to do
right.
it. And all of a sudden, my friend Paul, he was in the pool, and Paul goes like this, and he looks all around, and he dunks Steven. And, he just didn't even hold him down more than a second, but just right. dunked him down. Well, Steven never dunked another kid the rest of the time. So Paul gets out of the pool, and I look at him, and I said, "Paul, I wasn't supposed to see you dunking Steven, right?" He said, "No. Did you see it?" And I said, "Yes, it was the right thing to do."
Well, and sometimes you have to learn by being told, shown
yes.
what you're doing.
Yes. So that's one of the things we brought down. There was a pool. We were hoping the pool would be there the next time we went, but mm-hmm. it was so full of holes and stuff from mice and everything that we couldn't use it anymore.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
We always brought soccer balls with us.
Okay.
They all love soccer down there.
Of
That's
course.
their big sport.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we always would have some kind of crafts for them to do,
Okay.
and some of the kids really got into the crafts.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the older boys, they're no different than American boys. They kind of would turn their nose up at those things and not want to participate.
Yeah.
Then-
They must be masculine little
Yeah,
boys.
yep. And we always would go. There was a church associated with the Mafia Bishop House.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Deal and his wife were running the Mafia Bishop House, and unfortunately, Madam Deal passed away earlier this year. And so we'd always go to Deal's church on Sunday, and that was always interesting, trying to get me into the church. They were in the process of building a new church when the earthquake hit.
Oh.
And their new church, the only thing they left on it was going to be a roof, and the whole church building collapsed.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And they took. Well, I thought it was really neat. They bought another little piece of property that wasn't too far from where their church building was, and they used all the rubble to build just an outside church. So we used to go to their outside church when we'd go there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up for this segment, but Paul, I want to talk to you in our next segment about some of the personal experiences you had dealing with the kids, and what it felt like to be part of that.
Oh, I'd love
So,
to.
This is Charlie Bros. You're watching Just Build a Landscape. Stay tuned for part 2 with our conversation, Mr. Paul Pranghofer. We'll see you in a little bit.